The language I sing in is always based on my inspiration. I will write it in French or in any language that comes to me, and I say, I want this, I want to sing this in this language.
After almost half a century being one of the greatest influencers on the international world music scene, Angélique Kidjo has become a role model for generations to follow. Angélique Kidjo was born in 1962 in Ouidah, a small town located in the southern part of Benin on Africa's west coast. Music and dance were always present during her childhood.
I grew up in Benin, in the city of Cotonou, in a family of 10 kids. My mom's passion was theater. My father's passion was music and sport. And I started singing with my mother. I was 6 years old on her theater group. The first music I heard was traditional music because my father said I start singing before talking. And that traditional music has always been my compass. Because when you are living in a household where you wake up and all music is playing, you hear this and then you hear that. Jimi Hendrix is different from James Brown, it's different from Aretha Franklin, it's different from the Rolling Stones, it's different from the Beatles, it's different from music that comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's all those kind of music that comes in. When you're a kid, the only thing that you feel comfortable with, to be able to adapt to it, is going back to a traditional musician. I had that urge as a child to understand things, to be able to put it in perspective and put it in my life without understanding that I was learning a lot about music. And then one day I came back from school and my brother taught himself actually to play guitar, bass, drum, all the instruments. And I saw him with the album playing, Jimi Hendrix album playing, and he wear a long kaftan and put the afro wig on. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? Why did you put the wig on? He said, I want to sound like him. Because on the album, Jimi Hendrix have a huge afro and you have snake hovering over his head. And then I said, well, he's African, right? Because he has snakes and all those kind of stuff. And then he said, no, he's not African. He's African American. And I'm like, well, because I'm 9 years old, you're lying to me. I'm not stupid. You cannot be African and American at the same time. My brother said, yes, you can. He's a slave descendant. I said, what is a slave? My brother told me, said, if I start answering this question, I'm never going to play my guitar. Go ask your grandma. So I went to ask my mother's mother about slavery. And she tried to explain to me human beings selling and buying human beings. I'm like, She's losing her mind. Because in our house, what was important for my father and my mother was for us to understand that we have rights as any other people. Your skin color have nothing to do with success or failure. So that was always on the table. Then I turned 15, and on TV, I heard the struggle of black people in South Africa. For the first time I heard about apartheid, I was 15 years old. So something just snapped in my head. For the first time, I called my parents liars. I said, you've been telling me this? And this is happening not far from the continent where we live, that I'm realizing at 15 that my skin color can be a liability. I can be killed because I'm black. And then I come back out and a couple of days later with a song that I wrote and in which I was like so crazy, like kill all the white people. And my father said, nah, violence create void and violence create violence.
Kidjo's career started out as lead singer in her high school band and subsequently found success as a teenager with her adaptation of Miriam Makeba's Les Trois Z, which was played on national radio. In 1981, Kidjo recorded the album Pretty, which featured songs like Lenive and Gebagose. The success of the album allowed her to tour all over West Africa. Continuing political conflicts in Benin, nevertheless, prevented her from being an independent artist in her own country and led her to relocate to Paris in 1983. Initially, she planned to become a human rights lawyer, but ended up studying music instead.
In the 1980s, when I arrived in France, I was like, here I am, not knowing what's going on with my father and my mother, because I didn't have the authorization to leave the country. I was fleeing communist dictatorship. I was in school, I was studying at the same time, and it was bubbling. It was the moment of what they call Sono Mondial, which is translated to world music in English. And there were so many artists here. There is a studio called Davos. That's where we go. It was so much music at the same time, and all of it good music. It was amazingly exciting.
Angelique worked as a background singer and later became the front singer of Jasper van der Hoof's Euro-African jazz rock band Pili Pili.
I was one of those rare women artists of that era that is still here with Oumou Sangaré, basically from that same generation. Because let's face it, music is the main dominated form of arts too.
By the end of the 80s, Kidjo had become one of the most popular live performers in Paris and recorded a solo album called Parakou for the Open Jazz label. She was then discovered by Island Records founder Chris Blackwell, who signed her in 1991, and the album Logoso was released that very same year. 3 more albums would follow on Island Records, and in 1994, the album I was released, including the hit song Agolo. The following years, Angelique collaborated in numerous projects with international musicians and composers, always innovative, blending diverse musical styles in her own genre-crossing way. In 2018, Kidjo released Remain in Light, a cover album of the Talking Heads' classic 1980 album, where she made her own interpretation with electrifying rhythms, African guitars, and layered backing vocals. Angelique applied the same technique to the songs of Celia Cruz, and the album Celia was released the following year.
You have to be inspired. Even when you say that, you know you have the idea already. It's already in you. And when you start working, it doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from that thing that Philip Glass called from the domain of the unknown is what inspiration is. We can't sell it. We can't buy it. It's just there.
Alongside her successful musical career, Angelique also travels the world, advocating on behalf of children in her capacity as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. And in 2006, Angelique started her own charitable foundation, Batonga, dedicated to supporting the education of young girls in Africa.
Why can't we give the choice to those girls that live in the far villages with little resources? That doesn't mean they don't have a brain. So we started a campaign, urging people to send the kids to school. And my goal was to give scholarship, tutoring, mentoring, 1 meal a day, uniform, and books. Because you're talking about the poorest of the poorest. If you want the kids to go to school, you have to provide everything. And the mother told me, Angelique, we listened to you, urging us to send our girls to school, which we did. But you know very well that once they finish primary education, they're going to end up being married. And then suddenly it hits me. Because when I arrived in high school, a couple of my friends were no longer there. And I found out later they were already pregnant, being married. And I was enraged. It's just like you come right back. It's like somebody put a mirror in front of you and you see yourself and you go, I have a responsibility here to do something about that.
In 2016, the Batonga Charitable Foundation took a new turn when Kidjo started a collaboration with the Population Council, helping marginalized adolescent girls.
They created a tool called Girl Roster. With that technology, you can map a community of 5,000 kids with the question that you want answered to. Find out why they drop out of school, what do they need, which skill they have, how can we help them have an income-based activity. And the thing that comes out is that they need safe spaces. They need places where they can emulate each other and do business. So we will give them seed funding and they will do business. You don't come up with a plan, you answer to the need of the people and you let them be free. There's so many new music today. And the music that are coming out of Africa, from the youth of Africa today, is something I've been yearning to see since I started my career. Because when I started, I didn't have the technology that they have today. And also what is interesting today is to see the professionalism of those young artists and to also be the witness of how my music have impacted this young generation. I have no clue when I did my album from Logozo all the way to all the album I've done. I was played around the clock every day. So what happened? Young women are doing music today without being apologetic. That's what I wanted. That's what I was hoping for. I mean, it's crazy to see this new generation that is bold, talented, and just go for it.
Besides being a role model for a younger generation of women, Angelique Kidjo has been a creative force with 16 albums to her name. She's won respect from her peers and expanded her following across national borders.
Well, receiving the Polar Prize is like receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for me. So I have no words to say how important this prize is for me, because I am in a company of the greatest of the greatest. And also it comes with the sense of responsibility as an ambassador of music of this world, to be the citizen of the world that we create, through my music, a world in which we can all live in peace.
The Polar Music Prize 2023 is awarded to Angelique Kidjo from Benin, a unique and unstoppable artist and songwriter. Angelique Kidjo speaks and sings in 5 languages: Fon, French, Yoruba, Gaon, and English. Angelique grew up in Cotonou, surrounded by the dynamic Beninese culture and listening to music from all over the world: soul, jazz, reggae, Afrobeat, pop, and classical. When a communist dictatorship tried to silence her, she moved to Paris and became even more active. Angelique Kidjo invented the word Batonga, a response to those who think girls don't belong in schools, and runs the Batonga Foundation, which seeks out girls and provides them with education. Bono has said of her, "In Africa's new morning, Angelique Kidjo is the warmth of the rising sun."
My name is Angelique Kidjo, and I will be coming to Stockholm to receive my Polar Music Prize. And I can't wait to be with you and celebrate.